Bats are amazing creatures. Not only is it the only mammal that can fly consistently, but it also has amazing immunity. Even if they are infected with viruses that are deadly to humans, such as Ebola, Marburg, or rabies, they remain unharmed and rarely get sick. This mysterious phenomenon has also fascinated scientists. Why do bats have this ability? What can we humans learn from them? Let's start with the bats themselves. When we think of bats, we may easily think of vampires or the figure that walks through the night of Gotham City. But when asked what bats look like, we may often only have a vague impression of rats with wings. This is probably because we don't usually have the opportunity to observe bats up close. After all, bats can fly, and most of them are diurnal and nocturnal, which also gives us the illusion that bats are niche creatures. In fact, the bat family is quite large. So far, there are more than 1,400 known bat species. In total, there are only about 6,400 species of mammals. Bats alone account for more than 1/5 of mammals. And because of their wings, bats can be found all over the world, except for the Arctic, Antarctic, and some remote and isolated islands. Bats often bear the notoriety of sucking blood due to their poor appearance and nocturnal appearance, but in fact, there are very few bats that feed purely on blood, and the feeding habits of most types of bats can be divided into carnivorous and herbivorous. Among them, carnivorous species prey on insects, a few predators on fish, frogs and other vertebrates, and herbivorous bat species feed on nectar, pollen, and fruits. Many of these bat species are capable of destroying insect pests such as mosquitoes in large numbers, while others can help pollinate plants. If we look at bats in terms of infectious disease risk, bats become living petri dishes. Bats are known to carry at least 60 viruses and are natural hosts for a large number of zoonotic pathogens, including the unsightly rabies, but rarely get sick themselves. What's more, these viruses have the opportunity to spread to other animals and even humans, and cross-infection between bats can lead to the emergence of new viruses and more easily break through our immune system. So the question is, why can bats carry so many viruses and not get sick themselves? There is a popular explanation that because bats are flying, the process raises body temperature. There seems to be some truth to this view, because fever is a common weapon of our immune system against pathogens, and increase in body temperature can inhibit the multiplication of many pathogens in our bodies. However, in the case of bats, although the body temperature of bats is indeed relatively high when flying, the large wings of bats are dense with blood vessels, which are excellent heat dissipation devices, and it is easy to lose heat, which is why bats tend to wrap their wings around their bodies like cloaks when they rest. And, because flying is quite energy intensive, bats will also reduce their activity and go into a dormant state, at which point their body temperature may drop to a level similar to that of their environment. What's more, many viruses are not so afraid of heat and only rely on high body temperature to explain the invincibility of bats, which is not very convincing. Recently, the leading academic journal Nature published an interesting paper that put forward a rather innovative idea that bats may be super immune because they can fly. Bats produce harmful chemicals while flying, which might have driven them to evolve resistance to viruses. In the study, scientists used advanced sequencing and analysis techniques to obtain the genomes of 10 bat species. They then further compared the results with 10 previously completed bat genome data, as well as the genomes of an additional 95 other mammals. The comparison found that bats not only have more immune-related genes than other mammals, but these genes themselves also have some changes that help them better identify pathogens, regulate inflammatory responses, and respond to viral infections. A prime example of this is the genes of ISG15, which is present in both bats and humans. The human ISG15 gene is a double-edged sword. It helps fight viruses on the one hand, but on the other hand, it can be dangerous if the body has a severe infection, which can cause an excessively strong inflammatory response. But bats have just the right mutations in their ISG15 gene, some of which enhance bats' ability to fight viruses, while others make them safer. The study authors note that this allows bats to effectively block the virus without triggering the hyperinflammation that is common in humans. In the long journey of evolution, when did bats acquire these immune superpowers? Going back in time, Researchers have found that the adaptive changes associated with immune genes can be traced back to the common ancestors of bats that learned to fly. This result suggests that there may be a connection between the bat's extraordinary immunity and its ability to fly. At first glance, this conclusion is puzzling. Do you need strong immunity to take to the skies? That may be the case. Scientists think this may be because flying places a huge burden on the bat's body. While flying, the bat's heart rate can be maintained at 1,000 beats per minute for a long time. Extreme metabolism produces large amounts of toxic byproducts such as reactive oxygen species. In order to cope with these metabolic garbage, bat ancestors evolved the ability to fly and at the same time evolved a strong immune regulation ability. Inadvertently, this immunity makes them better able to tolerate deadly viral infections. Of course, there are still some questions left unanswered in this study. For example, some molecular virologists have pointed out that although this theory sounds very reasonable, it is still only in the hypothesis stage after all, and it is difficult to really prove it. In addition, some of the current results still need to be further explained. For example, the different species of bats selected by the researchers, although they carry the same key changes in the ISG15 gene, there are still differences in the ability of these species to suppress the virus. Since most of the bat species selected by the researchers carry viruses that can be transmitted to humans, understanding how resistant bats are to viruses is not only expected to reduce the occurrence and spread of zoonotic diseases, but also provide valuable insights into the treatment of human diseases, such as helping to develop new drugs or regulating the human immune response.